deep dive here up front, and then we're going to do some live coding. I'm going to implement Zaps into my PlebDevs platform I'm currently building right now. But first and foremost, I want to take at least 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, and I want to see how deep of a dive we can get into HedgeHog and how much I can understand it. My friend and protege, supertestnet, wherever he is in the world, he released HedgeHog. Was this yesterday, March 26th? Was that yesterday? Wow. Yeah, I can't believe that was yesterday. I feel like everyone has been talking about this the last 24 hours, it seems like. Lots of discussions, lots of things coming out, new revelations, but I'm still getting caught up from absolute zero here. So I want to watch Super's video, and then we're gonna look into his repo here, and I'm gonna try and break down basically how a HedgeHog works into my own kind of document that I can follow. There's a lot of information here, so we'll see how deep into this we can get. But in a way, it seems simple. Seems like there's two big concepts to understand here, but yeah, I mean, let's get into it. And definitely, if you are familiar with HedgeHog in the chat, feel free to call me out. If you know something I don't know, and you know, definitely not a technical expert here, just a pleb dev, but I think we can get a basic idea of what's going on here. So let's, I'm gonna mute the music here, and let's start to dive into the video, and let's see what this is about. So I'm trying to keep the volume here. Be careful, because there's a lot of background noise.
Hey guys, this is supertestnet, and today I just wanted to show you my latest invention, which is called HedgeHog. HedgeHog is a protocol for asynchronous layer 2 Bitcoin payments. So these are kind of like the Lightning Network. This is a protocol similar to the Lightning Network in that it's a layer 2 for Bitcoin payments, only in this one, unlike the Lightning Network, the two parties don't have to both be online. It's asynchronous. One party can send the other party money when they're offline, or when the second party is offline. So I'm going to show you how it works, and to do that...
okay, so first of all, I guess just from how he's framing it, how I'm going to frame this and how I'm going to think about this is that it seems like the goal here is to create a protocol as close as possible to how Lightning works, sticking to those fundamentals, but with a focus here on async payments, which I guess by his definition means being able to receive offline, which currently with Lightning, I mean, I guess the big difficulty, the big barrier to entry is the fact that you need this always online server. And this is a problem with so many things in Bitcoin, is the need for an always online server. So it seems like that's what he's trying to solve here with HedgeHog.
I'm going to show you first, and then I'll tell you a little bit about it. So if I'm going to follow the instructions that are on the screen here, enter Bob's pub key and revocation hash, which I do like that. And then it says to do the same thing over here. It says send some sats to this address and give the TX ID. To do that, I'm going to use MutinyNet, their faucet.
Okay, so it seems like this is like the channel creation process. So they're establishing a multi-sig together, and then someone's going to fund it. I guess Bob.
I'm going to send 10,000 sats into this Bitcoin address. This is a multi-sig between the two parties. Okay, so I did it, and then it wants the TX ID. So the TX ID is this. So I'll put that in there. It says what vout is it in? Well, let me go check. It happens to be vout 0. So I'll go back here and say vout 0, and the amount was 10,000 sats. Same thing over here. Just say 0, 10,000 sats. And now this is Alice over here. Alice wants information from Bob. So Bob's going to send her this little piece of information down here. It's okay, and great, the channel is funded. So Alice, before money went into this multi-sig, Alice should get this from Bob, which allows her to take the money out if she wants to. Now that the money is in there, Well, I can show you how they send the money back and forth. So I do HedgeHog Alice send, and it asks, it says, Alice, you've got 10,000 sats. How many do you want to send to Bob? Let's say she wants to do, I don't know, 6,000. So basically, it creates this little script in here. Not script. It creates this little piece of text that has a payment for Bob in it, and I can do HedgeHog Bob receive. Enter that, and the new balance is, Alice has 4,000 sats, Bob has 6,000 sats, and they can keep doing this all day long. Like, Bob did not have to be online. She could have sent him this in an email, and he could have come online later to type it in. But let's just do one more. HedgeHog.Bob send. He will send back Alice, I don't know, 3,000 sats. So he copies that, and we do HedgeHog Alice receive, just like that. Now the new balance is Alice has 7,000 sats, Bob has 3,000, and at any time either player can close this channel. They can be like, it's all in a multi-sig, so they could cooperatively close by just co-signing to send the money according to the latest state. But there's also force closures. So if I do hedgehog.alice close, this is like a unilateral exit by Alice. So it broadcasts a pair of transactions. One of them is right here. And let me go broadcast this one on MutinyNet. So.
Okay, so we see the funding of the channel from one side, so it seems like some of those concepts are crossing over already. We've got a funding of a channel from one side, and it started, I think it was it Alice? So Alice funded the channel, so she had the full balance, and then we had a state update, I guess 2 payments that went back and forth, which switched the balance, which updated the state. So I guess that's kind of like, we have the happy path open, we have the happy path of them being able to send to each other. And then I guess the unique thing there is that there's this string that's actually being sent, which has, I guess, the state update and the revocation script in it, which basically means like, okay, here's the updated state where you now have 3,000 more sats, and here's a script, the updated script to be able to, I guess, force close or unilaterally exit, as he's talking about. So I think that kind of makes sense so far. Let's keep going.
mutinynet.com/tx/push. This is their transaction broadcaster. You can broadcast that. And Alice has initiated a closure of this channel in the latest state. And so the latest state, well, she puts most of the money into another multi-sig between the two of them, and a little dust output over here. And she's going to spend both of those after some blocks go by. So her channel closure transaction, her finalization, is right here. And if she tries to broadcast this, it won't work right away because, this says non-BIP68 final. There's a time lock on this. In case this isn't the latest state, Bob has an opportunity. Bob has some time, wherein for a few blocks he has got the ability to show that this is not the latest state, that she updated it to some new one. And so while we wait for the
Okay, so that's interesting. So it seems like, so Alice is initiating a force close, and she's saying, okay, here's the latest state. But just like on Lightning with the classic revocation, the other party, if they discover that that state is bad or wrong, they can prove it, and they should have a revocation script, which is basically, they call it revocation, justice transaction, punishment transaction sometimes, but it's basically just the idea of if Alice gets caught cheating, broadcasting a state of oh yeah, Bob paid me all of his sats, if that's not a true state, then if Bob can prove that and then actually take all of Alice's funds. So that's kind of the, I guess, the process to keep each other honest. This is how I kind of think of a Lightning channel as well. It's like 2 people are coming to an agreement, they're in a contractual agreement in this multi-sig, but they also have guns pointed at each other. At any point, if any of them broadcast bad state or tries to cheat each other, they can pull the trigger and then take all the funds, which is a really cool mechanism. So it seems like that same mechanism is at play here, but I imagine it's being done differently. Okay, so now, okay, yeah, and then also that's happening in this time lock. So Alice wants to close her channel, but she can't just close it instantly with the bad state. There's this time lock that she has to wait for, and during that time lock is when Bob has the opportunity to revocate if the state is wrong. Okay, let's keep going.
Those blocks to go by. The transaction this thing currently has 2 confirmations. I've got it to where it needs 5. But while it's waiting for those confirmations, I can tell you a little bit how this works. This uses something that I invented, I think I invented this, called a revocable connector. And I got the idea for revocable connectors from Barak, who invented connectors, and from Lightning, which invented revocation scripts. Or Lightning probably didn't invent revocation scripts, but they're used in Lightning, and that's where I learned about them. So basically, a revocation script looks like something like this. Alice can spend the money after some amount of blocks, or Bob can spend the money if he knows Alice's secret. Right? If Bob learns a certain secret created by Alice, he can just spend the money. So that's a revocable script. We use them in Lightning to make sure that, this is how Lightning penalty works. If you send a Lightning payment that's not, the latest, then your counterparty can steal from you, not steal, but do a justice transaction and take the money in the channel because they know the secret that you gave them when you revoked your old state. So that's used in Lightning, and it's also used in HedgeHog. But then
Okay, so that's a good mental model, and that's a good little visual he had there. Back up. Oops.
the other
If I back up just a hair, yeah, right here. So this or statement here. So basically, what we have is every state update. So Alice updates the state. She passes the secret over every time there's a state update. And the same thing with Bob. And so the secret is basically the right to rug each other. Rug isn't the right term here, but the right to revocate if the other party is dishonest. So, okay, that's pretty simple idea. Revocable scripts. Okay.
revoked your old state. So that's used in Lightning, and it's also used in HedgeHog. But then the other thing we use is connector outputs, which were invented by Barak. And they allow, if you've got some money in a multisig, like we do here, a connector allows you to say, hey, I'm going to send some money from Alice to Bob, but it only goes through if a certain UTXO exists, because that UTXO is used as an input to the transaction. And this makes it so that you can't create UTXO-B unless UTXO-A exists, because the transaction allowing you to do it consumes UTXO-A as an input. So our 5 blocks have gone by, so I can now finalize this state. So this says non-BIP68 final, but now it works. So I have dispersed the funds. And so if we look at this transaction here, it shows this one. It sends the funds, 7,000 go to Alice and 2,000 go to Bob. It's supposed to be 3,000, but Bob has to pay the fees here. He was the last person to send, and the last person to send pays the fees. So there were 500 sats to make this transaction happen, which is the parent, and then another 500 sats right here to make this transaction happen. So Bob paid the fee.
Is that the case in Lightning? I don't know if that's the case. I'm trying to think. I think in Lightning, it's just whoever initiates the close is the one that pays the fees, because you're the one broadcasting the transaction. So that seems a little bit different here. He's saying that the final party to do a state update is the one that pays a transaction fee. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if there's maybe an attack surface there where you can be hostile and have the other person pay the fee. I don't know. Digging too deep here, but that's interesting.
And thus Alice gets 2,000 and Bob gets 3,000 minus, fees, a couple of transaction fees. But yeah, this is an off-chain payment protocol, and two parties can go back and forth sending the money to each other, and it's just as fast as the Lightning Network, but it's different because you only need one party to be online, and that's great. That's cool. So I'm calling this protocol HedgeHog, and there's an implementation of it on my GitHub that you can test out. and it's really neat. Go check it out. Thanks. Talk to you later.
All right, very cool, super. Let's look at this README now, and I'm gonna pull out my my ChatGPT here to help me summarize this. Do I want to write anything down? Well, let's just take a peek at this first. Okay, so HedgeHog works. HedgeHog is built on a primitive Bitcoin script called revocable connectors. To make revocable connectors, you need two even more primitive primitives: revocable scripts and connector outputs. Okay, which is what he talked about in the video. So let's see if we can get our head around these two primitives. So we talked about the revocable script. So AS is Alice's secret. A value Alice may reveal to Bob if she wants to revoke her ability to safely receive money in an address containing the top script BS. Is a similar secret Bob may reveal to Alice to revoke the bottom script. Okay, and I guess by bottom script here, we just mean the latest state update. I believe so. So, okay, that makes sense. Connector outputs. A connector is a primitive Baroque popularized by using it in ARC. Suppose you have a multi-sig address like this. Shout out to Baroque. True story about Baroque. The first time I met him, I asked him something like what do you do? Like, what do you do for work? And he just told me, he's like, oh, I'm a dark wizard. I was like, oh, okay. So that's the kind of hacker that Baroque is. He doesn't even call himself a dev. He's just like, oh, I'm just a dark wizard. Okay, connector outputs. So suppose you have a multi-sig address like this. We've got Alice and Bob. So Bob can create a signature that sends money from that address to Alice. But since signatures can commit to multiple inputs, he can make his signature conditional. The SIG is only valid for a transaction that also consumes a second input. That second input is called a connector because it connects UTXO-A to UTXO-B. Alice can only spend UTXO-B, a UTXO locked to the above multisig, if UTXO-A exists because it is used as an input to the transaction Bob signed. This evokes a similar idea to me of like child pays for parent, maybe, where we have like, what would you call it? I guess a packet or a package of transactions here where can only spend UTXO-B if UTXO exists. So you have this payment, UTXO-B, and you're making it conditional by the existence of UTXO because B consumes A. Okay, that kind of makes sense, but I don't know how this comes together. So combining them, HedgeHog channels. This is a lot. This is deep right here. Okay, with these two primitives in hand, suppose Alice opens a channel with Bob by sending 10,000 sats into a standard multisig. Okay, so Alice opens to Bob with 10,000 sats. Alice can send Bob 2,000 sats off chain while Bob is offline. Okay, we saw that in the demo. By sending him two signatures. The first signature is valid for a transaction that A creates a 330 sat dust UTXO revocable by Bob. The dust UTXO is locked to the revocable script. And B sends the change, 9,670 sats minus a fee, so more like 9,500 sats, back to the multisig Alice and Bob. Okay. The second signature is valid for a transaction that sends 7,000 sats to Bob from the multisig, and the UTXO locked to the revocable script. So the second transaction input contains 9,500 plus 303 together, and the UTXO locked to the revocable scripts serves as a revocable connector. The second transaction sends 2,000 sats to Bob, and the rest, 7,830 sats minus a fee, back to Alice. I felt like I was following there at the beginning. Okay, so Alice's new off-chain balance, 7,500 sats, down 2,000 with sats and a fee. Bob's new off-chain balance, 2,000 sats, up 2,000 sats. This is state 2. State 1 was just Alice with 10,000 sats and Bob with 0 sats. Okay. When Bob eventually gets online, he can accept Alice's disbursement, state 2, like this, cosign and broadcast the first transaction, which creates the revocable UTXO. Wait 2016 blocks for the time lock on the revocable UTXO to expire, then cosign and broadcast the second transaction. But there's a better option. Bob can keep the signatures on hand and wait because he might want to send money back to Alice later. And there's no reason to close this channel yet. Okay, I see. So this is just like a single state update, and then Bob can just close the channel from there and accept that, that single state update. But he can also not broadcast those and keep the channel open to then update that state once again. Okay, I still want to... Okay, let's get ChatGPT here. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. Can you help summarize this passage in new spec proposal? Oops, don't do that. Stop. Okay, so this is the passage, and then I'll just send, this is the entire spec proposal. I'll just copy this. Okay. The example given involves Alice and Bob, with Alice initiating a channel by depositing 10,000 sats into a multisig. Alice can then send Bob 2,000 sats off-chain by creating a transaction that includes a revocable connector, a 330 sat dust UTXO, revocable by Bob, and sending the remaining balance back to the multisig. A second transaction from Alice to Bob finalizes this off-chain payment. Bob, when online, can accept this transaction or wait to reciprocate with his transaction, maintaining this channel's flexibility. Found considerations. Okay, explain. Explain the revocable connector concept. Like I'm 5. Okay, imagine you and your friends have a box of crayon. You both promise not to take crayons out of the box without asking each other first. One day you decide to give your friend 2 crayons while they're asleep so they can use them when they wake up, but you want to make sure you're doing it fairly, so you come up with a clever plan. Oh man, I need, not like I'm 5, okay, like I'm 15. That's piggy bank, okay. So we have a piggy bank. We both need to agree every time you want to take money out or put money in. Now let's spice it up with a revocable connector. Let's say you want to give your friend $20 as a gift, but you won't see them until next week. Instead of handing them the cash directly, you write them a check. This is like the connector. But there's a twist. This check has a special rule where if you change your mind, maybe you need the money back for something else, you can revoke or cancel the check before they try to cash it, as long as you do it within a certain time frame. Okay, so this is a time lock. So this is like, I see. So this is like I can make a state update and send to Bob offline. He can claim it at any time, and it seems like publish it on chain and basically close the channel. Or Alice, before Bob claims it, has a second transaction where she can claw it back. So you give your friend this special check. They know they can cash it next week, but there's also this period where you could cancel it if you needed to. This is useful because it allows you to make a promise about paying your friend, but also keeps you safe in case something comes up you need the money back. I don't know about this explanation so far. The system is special check, revocable connectors, helps make the transaction more flexible. Okay. I use ChatGPT like this. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty useful. Sometimes you just need things in different words. I don't know about these words, but it's good to break it down. So I'm still not fully understanding the structure of this revocable connector, but I get the idea of the connectors, and I get the idea of the revocable script. Okay. I'm just trying to read this one more time. So Alice opens a channel by sending in 10,000 sats. Alice can send Bob 2,000 sats off chain by sending him 2 signatures. The first signature is valid for a transaction that creates our dust UTXO and sends the change minus a fee back to the multisig. The second signature is valid for 7,000 sats to Bob from the multisig, and the UTXO locked to the revocable script. Since 2,000 sats to Bob, and the rest minus a fee go to Alice. Need supertestnet GPT. That's $1 million idea right there. Supertestnet probably if we could get his secret scripts and train an LLM on them, it'd be very powerful. He has a lot of, from what I hear, from what he's told me, a lot of secret Bitcoin scripts and projects. So that'd be pretty good. Okay, so I'm getting the high level idea. It seems that this concept of connectors, this is what allows the condition. The condition of having the transaction that you can claw back, but also the transaction that the other party can claim as basically the state update. So both parties are basically they're baking a state update and they send it over. And that state update also includes the revocation that the other party can make if the state is wrong. Okay. So it's a pretty good introduction there. I feel like I need a second pass at this, specifically the revocable connectors. But pretty cool. It seems like this seems simple, and this seems to have almost all of the same concepts that we see in Lightning, and a lot of the same mental models that apply as well. There's a lot of conversation here on Stacker News. I haven't gotten to read through all of it, but definitely I saw Justin from ShockNet. Where is that? Yeah, it's kind of questioning him here, like basically what is the difference between this and like an LNURL withdraw? Since the receiver must come online to sweep the state, it's not asynchronous. It's a promise, not unlike any centralized solution. The internet does not work asynchronously. It works through reattempts and resignaling. So it's kind of an argument of terms. Super here compares it to a check. If I was at a grocery store, I gave the clerk a check. Then later someone asked me, but did you pay them? I would say yes. And instead of a bank account, these checks are redeemed from a multisig where the recipient is a key holder and can enforce the redemption. That's my point. Language matters. Are LNURL withdraws an async payment? Does Lightning have async payments already? If the answer to either of those is no, then the same is true of HedgeHog. I see. Yes, they are async payments when you have to trust someone's word until you redeem it. LNURL, but they require trusting a server until you redeem them. HedgeHog fixes this. I see. So it is kind of an argument of semantics a little bit. I see the point here. Like, there's a lot of schemes that you can have for creating async payments, and like I even created a very, very basic dumb spec for this myself using Nostr Wallet Connect, where it's like, oh, well, I can pay someone if they're not online with Nostr Wallet Connect. And it's kind of like, well, that's not true. Really, what I can do is I can send a payment that they can claim to a server via Nostr Wallet Connect, right? So I can kind of bake this payment with Nostr Wallet Connect. I can have it sit on the server, and then once they come online, they can claim it. So then, in a sense, it's like, well, I'm sending you a payment when you're offline, but it's not actually async. And you do have this server in the middle that's trusted, and then you end up back to square one, where it's like, well, now I have a server again, and I'm trying to figure out how to make my server not be a trusted party in this. And there's different things you can do, make it easy to run the server, make the server open source, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I guess Super's argument here is like, there need not be a server. Like, the transaction isn't sitting on a server. It's this piece of information. It's this script and this transaction that you can broadcast as the other party. And it doesn't really require a server. Like, you can text this to me, you can email it to me, and then like I can claim it or revocate. And there need not be a trusted server in there necessarily. So I guess that's kind of the nuance here, but man, this is fascinating. Yeah, I mean, there's been all these discussions about L2s, and there's a lot of new L2s coming out. I mean, it's cool that Super, in the time when there's like so many L2s coming out, Super can drop his own L2 proposal, and then it gets a lot of people excited, and it's surprisingly simple. So that's cool. But yeah, I mean, definitely like a lot of what I've been thinking about with L2s as this discussion has escalated is it's just like, what are these primitives that we need for scaling payments on Bitcoin, right? And something that's important in there is that ability to unilaterally exit back on chain. And so this checks the box there. You can unilaterally exit back on chain. So that's an important one. And then there's like the concept that we're sort of sharing a UTXO. And so, I mean, in a sense, Lightning is kind of the only L2, and I guess HedgeHog here, where we have a UTXO sharing type of scheme where either party still is sovereign in the sense that they can unilaterally exit back on chain, assuming they have enough sats that they're above the dust limit. And so this seems like the trade-off that a lot of people are coming around, and similar to ARC, like the whole idea with ARC is that you have this VTXO, and this VTXO is this state that you can trade and exchange between. You can pay Lightning invoices and receive Lightning invoices, and you can exchange with other people inside of ARC, exchanging these VTXOs, and all of that's off chain. But the whole time, your share of this VTXO, you can unilaterally exit and kind of split your share in your latest state off of that, and then hit the chain with your own UTXO. And so, yeah, I guess I see a lot of these ideas. They're very, very similar, and we're just trying to figure out, like, what is the best way to give you, the full kind of sovereign control as if you have a UTXO on chain. But then we have we remove all the friction, allowing these, infinite state updates and infinite payments back and forth like Lightning within channel. But yeah, fascinating proposal. Definitely going to look into this more in the future, and I'm still not fully satisfied with my understanding of the revocable connectors, but the primitives here are at least pretty easy to understand, very similar to Lightning, very similar mental model to Lightning, so that's awesome. But all right, cool. Shout out to Super. And now I'm probably just gonna get into some live coding. Yeah, like I said, I mean, if you know about HedgeHog already, you know more, like, call me out. If you have any questions, throw them out there. But let me update my notes here. So we tried to understand HedgeHog. Did pretty good. Okay. Let's hop over to some live coding now. And I'm going to need to start up Docker. Sweet. So we spent like 45 minutes on that. Not bad. 38 minutes.